Rubin, New York City, educator, author, player, lifetime musician. Thank you for doing this.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for doing this. So
Yeah.
what is going on with you now, in the COVID and everything that is going on now? What is going on with you?
Well, fortunately, Rod, as opposed to other people and other musicians I've heard from, especially ones who have gig all the time, because I'm actually not. I would be happy to be doing some, and that's down the line a little bit. But because I don't make a living from that, as some of my friends did, this wasn't a real big transition for me. I'd already work at home. You know, I'd work at home anyway. And then the thing that changed was the students, the in-person students, that came to a stop until fairly recently. Some have come back. I'll hope to get a few more.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a big transition as far as day to day. You know, I'm an author for Hal Leonard Corporation.
How many books do you have published now?
I don't have a running count. My wife keeps track of this and me. She's a good publicist for me. 125 plus.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, I said 100, and then I saw another thing that said no.
In that
More than that.
I mean, you know,
everyone counts.
Yeah, no, and I know that sounds like a lot. I'm happy to have it. You know, you do something for writing book for over 30 years. Do 3 and 4 a year. Do the math. They add up, and I've been fortunate with Hal Leonard that they've given me plenty to do, and I have plenty to do now as well. And I would say a little bit of a part of a plug for them or the whole industry. Even in this day and age, they are selling print. They're selling hard copies of books. Yes, there's electronic ones too.
Yeah.
And they do okay, but we're fortunate, those of us who do this, we're fortunate that I think that people still like to have players open up a book, put on their table or their desk, you know, maybe listen online.
Yeah, analog.
Like but not looking at a page of music on a screen.
Yeah,
necessarily. I mean, even if you have a big monitor, I think they like to have the book.
Yes,
I think it's actually more efficient that way, and so we're very fortunate that they're selling books. Of course, we missed the NAMM show this year. That was to answer your question. Missed the NAMM show.
Okay.
Missed the NAMM show.
It didn't even happen, correct?
It didn't even happen. And I think that they are, I'm not quite up on this. The summer one, which I never go to, I think it's in Nashville, maybe is going to happen. I would think that then maybe the summer NAMM will happen, but looking forward to the winter one in 2022 in Anaheim. Hopefully we can do it, because that's a big deal. Have you ever been to it?
That's some of the stuff that's on my bucket list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, you need a badge, which is easy to get. You probably know people who can get you one. I also can get you one.
Okay.
It doesn't cost anything.
Yeah.
That was a big thing not to have happen, because that's great. It's when I get to see most of the people from Milwaukee, Hal Leonard, and other musicians. You know, it's a trade show for music. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. So there's kind of your short, not so short answer.
Yeah.
But
so that had a
the books
we'll get back. We'll get back.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll get back to hopefully next year it'll be in business. But
I'm fortunate again. I have 4 books going at the moment. 2 of them are co-authors. One with Alex Skolnick from Testament, and who's a jazz guitarist.
A ridiculously good jazz guitarist. His trio, I think it was a trio.
Yeah, he has a trio.
That he years ago was right he did a heavy metal cover album,
right?
reinterpreted heavy metal songs as a jazz player would.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah,
Tremendous player.
yeah,
Great guy too, I might add.
yep,
Very humble.
yeah. So when did you get started with music?
You know, I kind of a late start, Rod. I played I played some drums in junior high school, and I could still sit behind. I always say, if there's a gig and the drummer gets sick and there's no one else in the room who can play, I can go up and I'll be in time and I'll play. I'm not in great physical shape for it because I don't have a set of drums.
Mhm.
Drums. I wish that I had started when I heard Chuck Berry and Dwayne Eddy,
Mhm.
a big hero of mine.
Okay,
Got
both Chuck and Dwayne.
Yeah, both.
Yes.
Always
This is before the Beatles?
before the Beatles.
Yeah.
This is in the late 50s.
Mhm.
This is in the late 50s. And always was into instrumental music, which I still am. I'm not a singer. I am not a lead singer.
Mhm.
Uh, so I've always been into the instrumental music, always into guitar music.
Mhm.
And I wish that I had started playing then. I did not start playing after the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan's, which I saw, as so many people have talked about.
Mhm.
It took me a while into this. I went to art school in the 60s, and you know, all that music was great. You know what the 60s were like.
Mhm.
And it took a while to really into the late 60s till after I had heard Clapton on the first Blues Breakers album.
Okay.
And by that time, I had come to realize, I didn't know what the blues were. I mean, I heard the name, but I didn't really know what the blues were.
Mhm.
I started to realize that all the rock and roll that I liked from the 50s on, the ones I liked the best, they were all blues based.
Yes.
It's like, oh, that comes from the blues?
Yeah.
What's the blues sound like? If that comes from the blues and it's so good, we work way back.
Mhm.
A lot of people have done this. But it was hearing Clapton on the Blues Breaker. And I said, you know what? I was out of college already. So that's what I'm saying. I wish I had started when I was 12, 15, 16.
Yeah.
I didn't start until my 20s. And so early 20s. I said, well, you know what? I want to do this. I don't care.
Yeah.
And I went out and bought a couple, got a real cheap Japanese guitar, $20 guitar. Then I bought a 69 Telecaster, which I had for a while. And that was the start. And then you know how it works. You play, you meet other people, play
Mhm.
bands,
Yeah.
and et cetera, and so on. If you want to follow that trend a little bit about the teaching. So I moved to New York. This was in Philadelphia that this all happened.
Okay. So we're both PA boys.
Yeah, there we go. This is Philadelphia in
Yeah.
the 60s and very early 70s.
Uh-huh.
And then you don't need to have my whole resume here.
Oh, you tell us.
I have all of the personal stuff. In 1978, I moved to New York City.
Uh-huh.
In between there, I lived on a farm in Pennsylvania, but I played in bands there.
Yeah.
Upstate New York, you would know the area below Ithaca,
Mhm.
Binghamton area, but it was in Pennsylvania. But I played in those places. I played in Cornwall, played in Ithaca, played in Binghamton, and then moved to New York in '78. So and what am I going to do? And I realized again, I'm thinking to myself, I get off the stage at a gig and people would come up to me and ask, what was that you were playing there, you guitar players? What was that you were playing? Not that I was anything near a virtuoso, but I could play, I practiced. And I found that when somebody would ask me, I could explain it. And I liked explaining it and even showing them. I didn't mind it. And I thought, what am I going to do? Start giving lessons in New York City. I'd never given lessons because I didn't know what I was going to do when I
Did you study with anybody?
Did I study with anybody?
Yeah. Or are you self-taught?
I took a couple lessons from a very good guitar player. Actually, here A couple here and there. I did felt I needed to learn some theory, and I took a lesson with a couple jazz guitarists.
Mhm.
No, I hope they wouldn't mind if they even know me at this point, that I can't remember the names. They weren't well known. Maybe in their circle they were, but I took some because my theory, everything was self-taught.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't even really learn much music in high school, and certainly I didn't. I went to art school. I didn't in art school in Philadelphia. So yeah, I did some, but
Mhm.
really it was like I really wanted to be good. I wanted to play, and I wanted. Now I'm teaching. I got to know more theory. I got to really be able to explain it, and so it was really self-taught for the most part. But I would just add one more thing about that, and somewhere around the mid '80s, one of my students was a photographer for Guitar World magazine, and he said, you know, the editor of this magazine is really into the blues, and he can play some guitar and he plays better harmonica, but he really, as editor of Guitar World, and they were really big then, they were one of the
Mhm.
few along with guitar players, probably only those two at first. Said he should learn to play, but we're gonna, you know, you guys would really hit it off. You like all the same music. He sent him to me as a student, and we did hit it off. And that led to him asking me to do some writing for the magazine as I'm doing my first writing.
Mhm.
None of this is planned. Everything that happened wasn't planned, so I just wanted to play the guitar.
Serendipity
I didn't
there.
know where. Serendipity there. I just wanted to play. And he did. I was the editor. Well, he was the editor in chief of Guitar World's first blues special. They put out a blues special issue, which I think was the first one any magazine did. And got introduced to somebody from Hal Leonard, and you know, here we are.
That's wonderful.
That answers some of the questions about getting started with this.
So how long were you teaching before this happened?
The Guitar World thing?
Yeah.
4, 5 years, maybe.
So New York City, one of the things about New York City, I don't talk about serendipity or it's gotten movement. So you said you were doing your thing, but you can do your thing in a farm community and nobody will notice.
Listen, if I hadn't moved here, I'd just been playing in bar bands now. I'd still be playing in bar bands.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with playing in a bar band, by the way. I'm not knocking it.
Yeah.
Many of those, but no, coming here was the thing, right? Absolutely. Here's where a lot of people were. A lot of people come here to have a career, and I didn't know what kind of career I was going to have. I really didn't know what I was going to do with it. I thought, oh, I'll get in a band. You know, I'll get in a band and play, and I'll go do carpentry and construction work, which I used to do after I got out of college.
Okay.
Because
you went to college for what again?
I went to what was the Philadelphia College of Art.
Okay.
Universities of the Arts in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And fine arts. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in painting.
Yeah.
And I'm married to a painter, by the way.
Okay.
Who keep us during the day.
He's very good. He's very good with tech. We should mention.
Better than me.
Yeah, this is going out to Cheryl. So anyway, so now, so you started. Okay, so you Guitar World, and then you get into Hal Leonard. What was the first things? Did you have ideas for Hal Leonard, or they put things in your court? How did that work?
You know, there was a little bit in between there where I wrote for Guitar World for a while, and then I wrote for Guitar Player for a while. Well, a lot of magazines.
That's how I met you. That's how I say I met you.
You told me that.
Yeah, I still have all my guitar players and Guitar Worlds. Yeah.
Yes, I'm trying to get an idea of what I liked to talk, how I like to approach the music. I've been playing it now for a while and teaching it on that. But, and then the history thing, like you said, interested in the history, try to be a researcher.
Yes.
You know, and the first book was, which is, I'm happy to say, still in print. It's called Inside the Blues, 1943 to 1942 to 1982. And
Mhm.
I did a whole history. I started with T-Bone Walker, and what did I end up with in 82? Was that too early for Stevie Ray? Maybe
That's
about the,
right at the cusp of Stevie Ray. Yeah.
I think Stevie Ray was the last one in the book. So the first book had all the things that I like. It allowed me to do this, and a lot of all the things that I like to talk about. I went decade by decade and broke it down. And I found that, again, as time went on, I like talking about the instruments.
Mhm.
I like, of course, I like vintage instruments, but I like to identify that. I thought that was all part of it. You know, this, Rod, I'm sure you can relate. I liked to talk about what was interesting to me. I felt if I could explain it, it
Yeah.
might be interesting to others.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is one of the things that that I've taken from you, and I've told you this privately, that you are a historian, and as a music educator, historian, to me, that's important, knowing where something came from. And if somebody studies with me, they're going to get that, whether they whether they want it or not. But that probably comes from what I've gotten from you. And so a lot of this is also, I watch you on social media, because you do a daily, it's pretty daily, right?
Oh, it is the
Yeah,
birthdays.
yeah, the birthdays, and it's like yeah, so it's where stuff came from, and like your
Yeah,
heroes, and what are the things
stuff I
that,
like. Not just guitar, by the
yeah,
way. Just guitar, yeah.
yeah, yeah, what are the reasons certain things sounded the way they sounded culturally, like in the blues. I was like,
Yes.
you
It's a
know,
big topic there.
yeah.
Topic right there.
So,
Yeah. You
so
know, I've always been, I'm sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
I've always been fascinated. You know, you develop these interests as you go along. And I always say, just as a quick sidebar here, you know, I'm sitting in this room, you see the guitars on the walls right next to me here. It's where they stay every day. I feel so fortunate. You and I have talked about this. So fortunate. I can get up each day, pick up a guitar and play it.
Mhm.
I feel and then I never knew where it was going to go. And it's gone into, you know, the teaching and the books, and as
Mhm.
an educator, it's been a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So one of the things that talking about as a historian, I don't know that that's an honor to be called that. I certainly try to know my stuff. Is I'm fascinated by how things started at the beginning. I'm fascinated by, first of all, you know, rock and roll. First, I started with that. Well, what's the first rock and roll record? You know that books have been written. What was the
Mhm.
first rock and roll record? A whole discussion we could have tonight.
Yeah.
What's the first rock and roll song? I mean, people have gone back. I mean, people want to go back all the way to
Sing, sing,
Robert.
sing.
You know, I mean, you know, you can keep digging here with what your definition of rock and roll is.
Yeah, yeah. With Gene Krupa, that was electric.
Yeah, you know, that whole thing. You know,
Yeah.
was it? You know, we again, books.
Certainly
Have
they
been,
didn't call it rock and roll back then. It was swing music. That's like
no, that's right. But a lot of that sound, you would listen to it and say, "Wow, boy, that sounds like jump blues sounds like rock and roll from the early '50s." Well, yeah,
mhm.
that's a bit. And I'm fascinated by the fact that why that music has such a feel to it, the swing and everything, is because the people making it didn't even know what they were doing. They weren't rock and roll musicians. They were swing, like you say,
Yeah.
swing and jazz.
What's your definition of jump blues?
You know, like Big Joe Turner,
Mm-hmm.
the early '50s, Shake, Rattle, and Roll.
Yeah.
Bill
My
Haley and the
understanding, my
rock.
understanding of it is when swing kind of splintered, and you had
Right,
some of these guys that were going over to the Charlie Parker camp,
right,
and then the swing band, they took the rhythm section, a few horn players, and maybe a front person, and they would do popular songs that were swing derived, but it was a smaller unit, and it was
correct.
it was still a dance music. and it wasn't, we were making music for people, but it was, so the jump blues into the first rhythm and blues are, it's just a marketing term. They sound exactly the same.
Yeah, some of this is semantics for
Yeah.
sure, and
Yeah.
marketing. But and a good point, because we are guitar nerds, are we not?
Mhm.
The electric guitar, all of a sudden, the electric guitar can take the place of a rhythm of horns and maybe piano,
Yeah.
and two electric guitars. There you go, to put the quintessential rock and roll band, right? Two guitars,
Yeah.
bass, and that can make the sound of a whole orchestra. Loud guitars, there it is. It's, you know, so
Yeah.
you have that playing in there too. And also, I think after World War II, it was economically, it was not feasible to have large orchestras.
Yes.
I mean, some survived,
Mhm.
some survived, but you didn't. I mean, but even like Count Basie and those Kansas City bands, I think the groups got much smaller.
Yeah.
They just couldn't afford to pay all those people. I don't know about Duke Ellington and some of the jazz guys.
It was a different sound after post-war. Count Basie was a lot different than the 30s.
Right.
Early 40s Count Basie. It was less improvisational. And
Yeah.
so, but yeah. And then we can't forget about the electric bass. That also had the invention of the electric bass also had a great effect on the rock and roll.
Oh my goodness, yes, absolutely.
Change the sound.
Thank you, Leo Fender.
Yes, he's
Master.
he changed everything. Yeah.
Of course, we could have the whole Les Paul discussion too, who I had the pleasure of meeting a couple of times and interviewing too. It was a great
Mhm.
experience. Great guy. You have
How many people have you like face to face with? Like, say, I saw that you interviewed Wayne Kramer by phone.
That was by phone.
Yeah.
It was by phone. Yeah.
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 So I'll throw that out there, giving you book ideas.
Thanks for the pitch about a book about. I'll file it away. And I mean, you probably know more about it than me. I mean, I know the MC5.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's
Detroit Wheels.
is that does Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels, are they, or is that too much, or is that not underground enough?
No, that's all part of it. The Stooges, Detroit Wheels.
Okay.
Maybe the Amboy Dukes.
Nugent and Amboy Dukes. You know?
Yep.
Yeah. So you would call that the Detroit underground?
Yeah. Well, yeah. In other words, yeah, they did produce hits, but it was, and also MC5 is like they had a couple hits, but they were completely influential.
Right.
Completely influential in harder rock. It's like
right.
Kind of rock and punk and, you know, revolt music and so
they were very political too.
Yes.
You know, Wayne with his flag guitar, which he didn't have at first. That if you notice that video that I found, I wanted to put an early one up on my Facebook page. He's not playing that guitar yet in that video. That comes a little bit later. I remember talking to him about it. So he went on a little bit when I questioned about how that guitar came about.
Yeah.
So am I talking about like an area of your big interest and expertise?
I love all of that. Yeah, I love lots of stuff, but yeah, yes, Wayne Kramer. In other words, how many people would you say you over the years have done interviews with?
Several hundred.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just cranking them out at Guitar, Guitar One.
Yeah.
And then some guitar player too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, they're on cassette tapes. I have a closet full of cassette tapes. There's at least 200 there.
Okay.
At least 200, mostly blues, not all blues.
Okay.
Classic rock and roll, a little bit of jazz.
Uh-huh. Yeah. All right. So now, let's say in your music education, like in your teaching, what are I know you've said to me that the way I teach, it's It doesn't translate over the internet. And
Not
so
really.
what are some aspects of your teaching? Like, okay, so I like the fact that you're using music as a means to build confidence in particular styles. And you go ahead and you explain like some of your ideas in music education. How important is reading, for example?
Not for my students.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that doesn't disappoint any other music educators. I mean, I'm not really a sight reader. I can write it better than I can read it. And in almost 40 years of teaching, if on one hand I could count the ones who could read music, and then they couldn't really read on the guitar. Usually they could read on the piano, but they couldn't read on the guitar. You know, you run into that whole thing where you have the same note,
Yeah.
you know, in the same octave, and which you don't have on keyboard instruments.
Yeah.
So that hasn't been it at all. I kind of developed a system. The way I learned, everything goes back to how did it work for me? Well, maybe because I did have an art background before I got into music, I see it as visually. And most of my students understand that. So I use diagrams. I diagram out the chords. I diagram out the scales.
Mm-hmm.
I think we learn by patterns. And I think it's easier. I've had some success with that.
Mm-hmm.
Learn those patterns first. You want to know theory? Do you want to talk about reading music? We can get into that. But we don't have to do that first. I'll get people to play. There's the answer to your question. Get people to play. They want to play.
Mm-hmm.
So we do, you know, the first thing I'll teach those boogie patterns before chords to beginners.
Okay.
They make that easier. They understand that. And when they play that, then I can show them the pentatonic scale
Mm-hmm.
in a true position. And before you know it, they're improvising. I'm saying, here's the scale, 5 notes. You can't play a wrong note here. Over this progression, I say, you can't play a wrong note. Feel free. Yes, some notes are better than others at various times, but you can't play a wrong note.
Yeah.
Build confidence. They want to improvise. My students come in, they want to improvise.
That's funny because like when we were growing up, that was something that they said you can't teach. Improvisation. We proved them wrong.
We have proved them wrong.
Proved them wrong. That's just yeah. So
So I get them right into it as quickly as possible. They find out they don't have to be afraid of it. Go ahead, play,
mm-hmm.
and we take off. We take off from there. But I find that people grasp those ideas pretty quickly, and as soon as they can run up and down that box, as we could call it, you know, as soon as
mm-hmm.
as soon as they can start doing a little bit of that, and I'm playing like all of a sudden it sounds like music to them.
Yeah.
I said, you don't have to know the names of the notes.
Yeah.
Just listen to it. I said, I'm going to show you some things that'll
I would even go as far as to say that if you want to learn that style, reading will get in the way of that. In a way, in other words, when you're playing like Chuck Berry, how do you get that Chuck Berry sound? What is the right way to get that Chuck Berry sound? And to me, it's by listening. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how good
how do you, and I know you're better at this than I am because you're notating half bends and grease on the fingers and there's ways for all of that, which you've learned on the job. You've
learned.
Yes. That is one of your special skills.
Oh, well, thank you.
Good. Yeah. Is that how it's done? Do you prepare all that stuff when you're writing a book? Like what part is it? Is it transcription first or?
Well, it depends on if we're doing if we're working from copywritten material or playing a topic or playing in the style of, you know, a lot of 12-bar blues. I'm actually starting another one with the 12-bar blues licks. I've just started it with a slightly different take than before. I mean, it's been many of those, but it depends. Sometimes I'm provided with like the signature licks books, of which I've done many. I'm provided with the transcriptions,
Okay.
and then for the transcriptions, I analyze it and tear it down and explain it, what's happening there, and take it in chunks so that people can understand it. Because first of all, they look at that and they can't read it anyway.
Yeah.
But in small chunks, I can walk them through it, and then of course we do the audio. The
Mhm.
audio. So there's two different. There's two different.
So
ways.
the audio is always there, though.
It is in the last X number of years.
Yeah.
Not in the beginning. In the
Yeah.
beginning, first books didn't have it.
Yeah.
First books didn't have it, but
Yeah.
they have now. We used to put CDs in there. Now you access it online.
Yeah.
It's the audio online. They don't put the CDs in the books anymore.
Okay. Okay.
So they
That's
can hear it.
neat. That's I never knew how that worked, because for me, I do everything. So, but the transcription end of things. So
Yeah, well, again, for some of the books I do. For instance, I am doing now. I actually just started this one. Well, just to tell you the difference, I'm doing a Gary Moore book, Play Like Gary Moore.
Mhm.
There's a series I'm doing, it's called the Play Like series. So in the Play Like series, I've done a Robert Johnson, I've done a T-Bone Walker,
Mhm.
Freddie King, finished a Charlie Christian one. That was
That's wonderful.
great. Charlie Christian one. And now I'm doing a Play Like Gary Moore. So I don't have to do those transcriptions.
Yeah.
They have, Hal Leonard has Gary Moore books, but they're just the songs. There's no text.
Yeah.
There's no teaching in there.
Yeah.
Now I really break down the songs
Yeah.
and organize. What is he doing? What is he thinking? What scale is he actually using here in this?
Mhm.
So
And
how does he?
specific
you know,
techniques too? Gary Moore does have specific things that he does,
Yeah.
technically speaking.
So that's my job in the Play Like.
Yeah.
Play Like. But this other one I just started, which literally is called 12-bar blues licks, because people love books with licks. They like real accessible stuff. And if I've had any success for artists, we try to make the music accessible.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think this thing is, I don't think what we should do as teachers is like show off our hot licks
Yeah.
or what we can do. And that's not what people are coming to us for.
Yeah.
We're going to teach them. There's a time for that,
Yeah.
but not in teaching. So now I'm doing 12-bar blues licks. Again, I've got the history part. I started in the 40s. I'm going in the decades up to the 80s. So
Yeah.
I started with T-Bone again, because I think he's really the father of electric blues guitar. I
Yeah.
don't think anyone would really argue. I'm not.
Mhm.
He's not the first. Even recorded another discussion. Who's playing the first 12-bar blues
Yeah.
electric guitar recording? Which George Barnes is in there. A little
Also,
plug for
Charlie Christian is in there.
Christian and T-Bone knew each other and went
Yeah.
studied with teachers in
Was it-
Oklahoma City.
Yep.
So I'm going from there, and so I'm like a T-Bone, Johnny Moore, Oscar Moore. I'm going all the way through, and I'll come up through the 80s. I'm taking it decade by decade. Now I'm doing those transcriptions.
Yeah.
I'm doing those transcriptions in the style of to teach what they did. So they're short licks.
Yeah.
They're short, but there's a sequence. There's a foundation behind it. Often I'm doing 1/4 changes, because I think that's really important. If you're playing the blues,
Mhm.
you understand that's really big. When it goes from the 1 to the 4 chord
Yeah.
back again, you should know that if you make some adjustments there, even in the minor pentatonic scale, you've put a foundation in there. And even people who don't play hear the logic of where your solo is going.
Mhm.
The whole, not to get off into a
No, this is just, yeah, this is all good.
that kind of thing. But and again, it keeps coming back to, I wanted to know. The other thing I found when I started teaching is I wasn't happy just to like have somebody show me something, then I go play it. And I'd meet people, I'd always pick their brain, show me something.
Mhm.
I had to know, why does it work? I didn't have to know how to read the music, but I wanted to know the theory behind it. Well, why
Yeah.
that scale? Oh, then you mean if I can play it in this song, I can take it and play it in another song.
So what you're saying is theory dictates application. That is why we learn theory.
It's definitely a part of it.
Yeah.
And I tell my students, because they get frightened of theory, just the small doses.
Yeah.
You just have to know a little bit, understand, like,
Learn to play in key.
yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh.
I understand. Take the information that you have already. Let's make it so you can apply it to other songs and other styles of music,
Mhm.
even. And if you want to know some theory, I start with the the harmonized scale. I said, okay, this is for Western music. This is where it starts. Do, re, mi.
Mm-hmm.
B, understand what a key is. That's helpful to understand what a key. You can communicate with other musicians if you're in a band with friends. It's about, we will get up into modes and things like that, and leading tones, and grace notes and things like that. But if they want to go that way,
Yeah.
I think understand what a key is, because I'm not talking just about even beginners. I don't even have that many beginners. I usually get intermediate students.
Mm-hmm.
Understand what you do. You understand when you're listening to something. You can take that and use it. That's like a practical application of the theory. I think that.
Yes. Yes. So now I know you have some opinions on Django Reinhardt. So let's talk a little bit about Django.
Wind me up, Rod. I've got opinions on a lot of things and a lot of music. I think I don't think I'm really overstating this. I think a bit of an injustice has been done with Django and his place in the history of the music, which I've known for a while, and I've been into him long before I did this book, which is one of the.
You're doing a book. To let everyone know, you have 4 books in the works, some of which you're co-authoring, some of which,
with jazz rock improvisation and gypsy jazz guitar. Great player in California who we've never met in person. But I was into Django before that, which is how Leonard asked me to do that one. The one was the book with Alex Skolnick, which gives you a little bit of a description of how we do books there. I can pitch an idea to them. I might pitch the idea with the Detroit Underground that you're saying to me, which graciously gave to me. And often they come to me with something. And they want a gypsy jazz guitar book. And they wanted me to do a co-authoring. Well, I don't play gypsy jazz guitar. I understand it and I love it, but I've never performed it. And I'm doing the book with somebody who, that's what he does.
That's their specialty. The wheelhouse.
He's tremendous.
Yeah.
So I've always had that interest. And the deeper I got into it, especially doing again this book, where now I'm listening to the songs again, which I've done before. I'm listening in greater detail because we're doing a book and we're teaching how to play that way. And I'm like, man, are you people listening to what he was doing in the 30s? And not to take away from any of the pioneering jazz guitarists, the American ones. Of course, any of them. If you're going to start with Charlie Christian, he's not even the first. There's acoustic ones long before him. How about Lonnie
Nick
Johnson?
Lucas and
there you go. How about Lonnie Johnson? Dropping a name here. I've got to interview B.B. King probably 5 times. Tremendous experience. And he felt that Lonnie Johnson was the most important guitar player of the 20th century because he did jazz and blues. And I would agree with that. So Django's not the first by any means, but he's in that mix, and the accomplishment that he had so early on, before World War II. Like this is the pre-war stuff. So it's like the pre-war Django and the post-war, which is a whole other discussion too. I'm going to drop another name here, Jeff Beck, who one of my all-time heroes, who I've met and interviewed a couple of times. Huge thrill. Well, they all have been. And I don't know, we got talking about he's a big Django fan. that shouldn't be a surprise. And he mentioned something about the electric Django, and I had not heard it at this point. This is maybe 10 years ago.
Okay.
Electric Django, and everything I'd heard was that he
Same
didn't
here.
like the guitar and he didn't make the transition very well. But that's not true at all.
Okay. See,
True
now
at
I
all.
learned something.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not true at all. Oh, you have to hear him.
Huh?
You have to hear him like 47 to 53. He dies in 53. You've got to hear him play. I mean, Rod, he's playing proto bebop, Django Reinhardt, on the electric guitar. So Jeff actually told me which ones to go listen to, and it was an amazing thing. But I just think, I mean, he's acknowledged by players and educators like us, and a lot of guitar players know who Django Reinhardt is. But I think the general populace who's into jazz, and when you see the books that are written, I don't think he's given enough credit. I don't know. Do you agree, or am I?
Yeah. I will say also though, a lot of the guys like Herb Ellis, the Barney Kessels, they were all more vibing the Charlie Christian school.
They absolutely, especially Kessel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tal Farlow. All those guys. Go ahead.
No, Kessel knew Christian, but go ahead.
Yeah. So they were all copying that, and that might have something to do with it. That the Django's contemporaries were they weren't as big of a mouthpiece. But in France, they absolutely are.
Yes,
because there's the whole business of the culture that created the music, and
I think nationalism maybe plays a little bit of a part here too. But anybody who's going to hear this and listen to it who have not really explored him, I highly recommend it. And you can't even do it with one CD or one.
I have two good friends that are absolutely they're playing, and their lives have changed because of Django within
Great to hear.
20 minutes from here, and they're completely gifted, and I'm not even going to say it. I can't even hold it. Django is like, no, I can't play like that. I appreciate it.
I think I've learned even from doing this book how to really do the rhythm. There's a very particular thing called Le Pompe, LEPOMPE, which is their let me use a pick here because I'm used to playing with my fingers. But how about, that's not really the best example, but that's their backup rhythms, their version of swing, their version of Freddie Green, if you will. Which is more where I come from.
Same here.
Than Django, and I taught myself that because I wanted to learn how to play that way. Coming from I wanted to be able to do some of that. But that's a very specific thing. So now I've learned somewhat from doing this book and from this other player, Jeff Magid, tremendous player. I mean, he lives and breathes this stuff, probably like the guys you're talking about. He makes a real big point, which will be in this book and the videos that go with it. It's a little bit different than Freddie Green. It sounds like it's the same thing. It's 4/4.
When I'm playing with that friend, I'm doing Freddie Green, and he's like, no.
The same thing. But if I ever get a chance to play with somebody,
you say that's La Pompe?
They call it Le Pompe, which is the pump.
Okay.
Like pomp, right? Okay. French. The pump, POMPE. It's slightly different. I'd have to. It's hard to describe it. You kind of have to hear it.
It's a nuance. That's what I'm saying. It's a nuance. Like
it is
and we've discussed this before. That how do we get these nuances? How do we learn these? What is the best way to learn nuances like that?
Well, number one, listening.
Yes.
Number two, buy this book when it comes
Yeah,
out.
right.
Yeah.
Of course.
Because Jeff's going to have the video there, and he's going to show you how I've seen some of the
Yeah.
videos already.
Yeah.
As we were putting this book together, and it is at the publisher now.
Mhm.
It is Hal Leonard, and he shows exactly. I mean, he really breaks it down, and he shows where the accent and how you hold the pick,
Mhm.
really firm pick, and the way Django. And aren't we fortunate that there's some video of Django playing on YouTube?
Yes.
There's another one.
There isn't. I don't. There isn't. Is there any of Charlie Christian?
None.
Or
I had that in my book. I had to put that in my book because at the end of these play-like books, it's
Yeah.
like, hear this, see this. Here's what's on YouTube.
yeah,
There's none. Can you believe it?
yeah,
None. Even it was at Minton's inventing bebop with
yeah. Everybody.
all those.
Charlie Parker, all those
Everybody.
guys. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no.
Thelonious Monk.
There's no video.
Yeah.
But fortunately, we have a fair amount of Django, so you can sort of. Of course, the soloing part is like forget.
Do we talk about his brother?
The which?
His brother's like the rhythm guitar player, and his
brother was.
So he's the guy doing a lot of the. Django does too.
They both, they both did.
Everybody has to learn rhythm.
Yeah, and Django's doing like some kind of thing like this because these two fingers, these two are fused together from the fire.
Yeah.
So he figures out a way to make sixths and ninths and altered chords with those fingers. Of course, forget the soloing. That's this, right? The soloing is this. Two fingers.
Yes. Do you know who he is completely inspired? Was Tony Iommi of Black Sabbath.
I just think I've recently maybe saw that somewhere. I don't know that much
Okay,
about.
He's in the hospital bed. He put his fingers in it was like a thing, a press. And he got his hand caught, and he pulled his hand out, and the fingers were stuck in there. In other words, he lost his fingers, these two middle fingers.
Right.
All right. So he's in the hospital bed, and his boss comes in with a Django Reinhardt album. Okay, because Tony was going to go on tour. That was his last day. He went home for lunch and said, "I'm not even going back." He goes, "No, his mom he's living with his mom. He goes, "No, you gotta honor your commitments and all that kind of stuff." And he lost his fingers. So in the hospital, his boss brought the Django, and he goes, he's listening to it, and he goes, "Everything that man is doing is with two fingers." And it's like, so that put something in his head. I love stories like that because so this is why we learned history. It's because we could feel sorry for ourselves, and this is what happened to me, and this is what happened to me. But look at Tony Iommi. He carved his own fingertips so that he could play guitar. What is your excuse? You know what I mean? So, but Django completely gave him hope. So I got homework to do. So the Electric Django, everybody.
You have to hear the
I've never heard it.
And I have two CDs. I have that one and one where where they put all his solo pieces together. He did a bunch of solo pieces. And they're astounding. They're astounding. Not technically, but just the expression and the thinking going on there. Oh, I know we're going on here about.
So what do you got going on in the future? What do you have the Alex? You have the Alex book let's explain that a little bit. It was a jazz.
Not quite finished yet. He still has another chapter to do. So what I've seen so far, I mean, talk about somebody who can explain, because he knows that Alex knows the theory and he can sight read. And wow, he's really going, this is going to be a landmark. Both books I feel are going to be landmarks, not because I'm involved with them,
Mhm.
because these guys are so good.
Mhm.
They're the experts on their topic.
Yeah.
And I know some Django books have been done. I don't think that's going to compare to the depth of this one. And a lot of jazz books have been done, of course. But this is like a fusion book, because that's really, I think Alex would call himself more of a fusion. Although he can play straight ahead jazz, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think he see himself as a fusion, and he comes from
He-
that era.
He's one of these guys that has not denounced his past.
No,
And he celebrates his past, but I'm
he
growing.
does.
I'm not stuck with that. That is not all I am.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yes, exactly. And so he's got, I mean, oh, tremendous, tremendous detail. Break him down and a lot of references. He's also a really good writer. He's humorous, and he knows his history pretty well too. So he makes a lot of references, and he makes rock references in this fusion book, this jazz rock improvisation book, because he knows who his readership is.
Yeah.
He's not all talking to jazz guitar players. If they were, maybe they don't need this book. But maybe he's talking to rock players who want to play jazz, who
Yeah.
want to get put in their playing. This book will tell you how to do it. It goes into tremendous.
Yeah.
So it's that one, the Gary Moore book, Play Like Gary Moore.
Yeah.
And the one that I just literally started a week or so ago of 12-bar blues licks, because I did one maybe 15 years ago that was similar. And it's done really well. And people like it. They like to be able to open a page and see something they can learn quickly if they want. And here I'm going to go into it with more depth. So I've got those.
Is it a part 2, or is that book still in print?
We're not calling it a part 2. They like to just call it. Could it be a simpler title? 12-bar blues licks. And but it will be, the description will be from the 40s to the 80s.
Mhm.
You know, choice licks from 30 famous blues guitar players, starting with T-Bone, and I went past Stevie Ray, but I stopped. I felt that the 80s was enough a place to stop, because again, he's sort of the centerpiece there.
And he's also kind of the new breed of a new chapter.
That too.
Have you ever done anything on Stevie Ray?
Did a signature licks book.
Okay. I might have that.
Thank you. I appreciate the support.
Yeah. I forgot you wrote that though.
Yeah. Well, Wolf Marshall has done some too, by the way. I should give a colleague of mine a plug here. Everybody watching this, I know who Wolf Marshall is.
Yeah.
He's a pioneer in guitar education.
Yeah.
Really. I regret, by the way.
Books too. Like he had his old, back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
He had a whole.
He did. He was the first editor of Guitar One magazine.
Yeah.
It was actually his idea to start it. My great regret, you asked me about how many interviews. Miss Stevie, you think these guys are young and they're going to be around forever, and I'll get around to it, or I'll get the assignment at some point, because I would have loved it, of course, to have met him and done it. Missed him.
So
Missed him.
Who have you interviewed that in the blues world, we'll just say the blues world, that you took a lot from, like sits with you years after? You said you interviewed Jeff Beck
a couple of times.
Yeah,
and I've been, I was a fan since
BB King. Yeah,
BB King. John Lee Hooker. That was a real thrill. Went to his house actually. He lived in San Jose at this point. I was right around the NAMM show. I went to the NAMM show. I flew up to San Francisco, and went to his house and got to sit down with him. And I mean, come on, top 5. I think we could agree on that. Blues.
Yeah.
Legend. probably top 5. He's
Yeah, but
certainly
also his groove. Blues and groove.
you know.
Yeah.
And he did. They don't all sound alike, by the way. When he did them, which I saw because I did a book.
Yeah.
I did a book as well. But the interview was really great. He did explain to me how he learned from his stepfather, who played like that, who never recorded, unfortunately. So what we have is that. But going back to when we were talking about where things really started.
Yeah.
You know, and when somebody does something that's so unique, Django would be, but how about Hooker? You know, those first boogie tunes in the late 1940s. I mean, there's
I
literally
forget he
nothing
is that old. Did he put
in
stuff out in the 40s? John Lee Hooker?
yes,
Okay.
late 40s.
Yeah. I guess it was a renaissance. When I got it, I remember seeing him in all the Shindig maybe. Early 60s television shows where he's playing boom boom boom.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So but he had a whole thing before, way before.
Yeah, that was a renaissance. That era was a second wave.
Yeah. Hey, does he make the cut for your Detroit Underground? Because he got his start in Detroit, not Chicago. I think he worked. I think he worked for the motor company, like you're probably pushing a broom, but
yeah.
You know,
anyway. I heard in the 60s and this is maybe off base, but did he own his own car lot or something like that? In between careers?
Maybe Rod. I don't remember that part. I think he was able to maybe because he recorded for all these different labels under pseudonyms, because he wasn't really living up to I'm not giving away anything here, living up to his contracts.
Okay.
He went from one to another. He made a lot of recordings.
Okay.
And then the British guys discover him in the 60s, like we owe a debt to
important
the British blues.
thing while I'm on this with you, Eric Clapton. Let's go back to Clapton for a second. You talked about the Beano album being very influential. So now, here's what I think about Clapton. So everybody's like, Clapton is the one that taught us about our own people.
He sure did.
Okay. In other words, prior to Clapton playing on that album, wasn't so much he sounded a little like the early Yardbirds didn't sound like that.
No, he didn't get that. He didn't get that much room. Beck is the one who really made the Yardbirds.
Yeah.
But, and then Page comes in. That's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But no, he. I mean, they were doing their version of the blues, but he didn't get a lot of room there. I think, and he felt
what I got from Clapton, and what I think Clapton, why he's really, really important in the scheme of things, is he was vibing off of the Freddie Kings, the Albert Kings, the BB Kings, the Otis Rushes, all these people that we kind of ignored. We didn't know anything about.
Didn't know about them.
We didn't know about them. They were underground.
They were underground
until Eric Clapton. This is who I'm attracted to. This is what I love. Muddy Waters. This is what I love. And that gave them a career. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yes, absolutely, Rod. We owe him a debt.
Yeah.
We owe him a debt.
So if he never made Layla or whatever, Wonderful Tonight, his legacy will still be firmly established.
It really would. And Oh God, yeah, that album, the Long Slow Blues on there. Have you heard? If you haven't listened to that in a while, there's a Long Slow Blues on there called Have You Heard? I mean, that was the one that did it. When I heard that, I was like, oh God, how do you get to do that? I
Mhm.
want to, like you said, then you work your way back. Well, look at who these songs were. You know, if you're doing all covers mostly, not all, and you know they're covering. He did Hideaway on that album,
Mhm.
and then you work your way back.
Yeah.
Work your way back.
Yeah.
You know, just only slightly off topic. We lost Peter Green recently, talking about another great British blues guitar player. So I have to
Yes.
tell you a little story. I think you'll appreciate this too. It's pretty short. Always a fan of
Yes.
Fleetwood Mac, and again. I don't think they quite get the, you know, Mayle and the Blues Breakers. He deserves everything.
Yeah.
and I met and interviewed John Mayle,
Yeah.
also humble, nice guy. They kind of get the most attention and credit in the British blues scene, but the
Yeah.
Fleetwood Mac are in there at the same time.
Most people don't know that Fleetwood Mac started in 1968,
And
and they
Peter
started
Green,
out as a blues band
yeah,
post John Mayall
well, he
musicians.
played the Blues Breakers. Peter Green played after
Yeah.
Clapton,
As
so
in, John McVie's on the Beano album cover.
right,
Yep. And Mick Fleetwood was a blues breaker. All those
and then
guys.
Mick Taylor, another whole story.
Yeah.
Stones, gee, we could go on for hours here.
Yeah.
But I mentioned Peter Green because it's my hero, another one of my heroes for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to meet him briefly in New York at BB King's, as a matter of fact. It wasn't really memorable. If you know his story, and we don't have time to go into it now, he went through a really bad period when he left Fleetwood Mac. He had a lot of issues, and he wasn't what he once was. But at least I got to meet him. But then a few years ago, I got to do a Peter Green signature licks book, because I pitched it. I wanted to do a Peter Green book. I had, because I love his playing so much. So it's a pretty short story. I'll make it even shorter. I finish it, and I had gotten in touch with his nephew. Somebody introduced me to his nephew because Peter, at that point and in the last years of his life, he wasn't doing interviews. He wasn't playing. It's a sad story. He was happy with his life. He had a lot of issues to deal with. It's there for people who want to read about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to get, for the biographical part of my book, because I always put that in, I wanted to know bring it up to date from what a couple of books have been written about it, by the way, too. And I had the books, but they weren't up to date. So I wanted to know what he was doing. I got in touch with his nephew, Joe, saxophone player, nice guy. Gave me some information that was not readily available. So I finished the book. I emailed Joe. I tell him, if you give me an address, I would love to send you one of the copies of my book. And if you could give it to Peter, I would be unbelievably honored. He said, sure. He gives me his address. I send it to him. A couple of weeks later, I get an email, and there's a picture of Peter Green sitting in a chair holding my book.
I saw that. That's your Grammy Award.
That's
That's
right.
your Oscar.
Grammy Award. That's good enough for me.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention it.
Did you hear the story that Gary Moore said about Peter Green? I think it was Gary Moore. That
he bought his Les Paul, you know
that.
that.
But Peter Green did not charge him what the Les Paul was worth.
Like 300 pounds.
Yeah. The 59 Les Paul, everybody.
Yes.
Peter Green said, take the guitar. I want you to have the guitar because I want it to be put into good hands.
Right.
And I say, whatever guitar you're playing, sell it, and I'll take the money from that guitar, and it's yours. That's the kind of, I don't even know what Peter Green was going through at the time, but that was completely
Yeah,
Yeah,
not good.
yeah.
Good. Yeah.
So
And then I think Gary sold it for considerably more.
he did sell it. He ended up selling it.
He did. I think, what's his name from Iron Maiden?
Adrian
Um,
Smith.
I think Iron Maiden, the guitar player, has it and he appreciates it. I should know that the name's on the tip of my tongue. I'm pretty sure.
Adrian Smith or Dave Murray? Janet Gears. I know them all.
I'm having a blank. Yeah, I'm having a blank here, Rod. But one of those, one of those guys.
Was it
Uh,
Whitesnake? What was it, Bernie Marsden? Did
No, but if you said the name, I would know it. He's the most famous one. Well, he's really famous in that band.
you sure it's not Adrian Smith?
No, it's not him.
Dave
It's
Murray.
It's not him either. I'll have to get back to you.
Okay.
I think I have the band right. I think it's Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
It wasn't Metallica, so I mean.
Oh, it might have been Metallica. Yes. Kirk
Was it
Hammett. Kirk
Yeah,
Hammett.
Kirk Hammett. I'm sorry,
Yes.
Metallica. He owns it now.
Okay.
He owns it. I don't think he got it directly from Gary Moore, though. I think
Okay.
it passed from other hands.
Okay. Yes.
I'm not right, but for where, I mean, I don't think he's actually told what he paid for it, but you'd have a down payment on like a
Yeah.
mansion.
It's a drop in a bucket to him for him though. But yeah, that is certainly everybody was Randy Rhoads was a big fan of Gary Moore's. Yeah, so all of it.
Great
Vivian
player.
Campbell. Yeah,
Great player.
he's another one. He's another one that's underappreciated.
Yeah, boy, he's got fans though.
Yeah.
The fans, as I've learned doing this book, and I did get to interview him, by the way.
You
A
did.
couple of years before he unfortunately passed. I did interview Gary Moore. It was a nice interview.
Okay.
Yeah, it was good. Again, very humble, knowledgeable, loved the blues,
Yeah.
really appreciated it.
Yeah.
But his fans, I mean, they're a legion, but you're right. He's not in that, he's not seen in that level.
All the people that like the Randy Rhoads of the world, the Kirk Hammetts of the world, that's all Vivian Campbell of now in Def Leppard. All those guys, this is the guy that we pay attention to.
Right.
He's the right combination of flash and substance for them. And I like him too. Yeah. Well, thank you, Dave. We're running out of time. Well,
we are.
We will do this again sometime. This is fun.
You didn't hear the Chuck Berry story, but there's not enough time now. It takes
we can do the Chuck Berry story. Go ahead. I'm self-employed.
I played with him twice.
Yes.
Played with him twice. Once at a county fair in Virginia.
Yeah.
Which was very memorable, but I'll leave that. That's a lesser story, but it's a good one too.
Yeah.
Second time at a college in the Bronx in New York, a couple of years later.
Yeah.
So again, I'll have to make it short because I know we're running out of time. So we're playing in an auditorium. We're playing to college students, and he said he remembered me, but I don't think he remembered me from the first time. But he was very gracious. So two parts. First part is I'm talking to him in the dressing room because I'm the de facto leader of this band, and because nobody else would do it. That's why I'm the leader. But I don't mind. I'm getting to talk to Chuck Berry for the second time in the dressing room, just two of us, and he's very nice. And he starts talking about the blues. So Chuck Berry, I have to tell you, when you met him, you couldn't start asking him questions like, "Oh, Chuck, so in 1957, you're playing what?" Well, no. He talks, you listen. He goes into the story about the blues. We were talking about the blues. And he says, I just heard recently in St. Louis, he says, an old blues singer. Now, he doesn't tell me who it is, and I can't ask him because you don't interrupt him. And he says he did a song, and he did a verse you don't usually hear. And I'm thinking to myself, gee, who is he talking about, and what is the song? He doesn't tell me. Okay, now we're playing the gig. He calls Key to the Highway, because we did some blues. He starts playing Key to the Highway, and he sings a verse I hadn't heard before. He turns around and smiles at me.
Mhm.
That's not my Chuck Berry story though.
Okay.
I just-
Well, that is, yeah.
I just thought you'd appreciate that with him because he was excited talking about the blues. Chuck Berry was excited. I didn't want to talk about it. He wanted to talk about the blues. Okay, so we're doing the gig and it is going great. People are like, as it was on the first gig, they just was crazy just to see him. He didn't even have to play. He comes out on stage, they go berserk. It's Chuck Berry, living legend. I'm thrilled beyond me, beside myself anyway. So he's ready to close the show. He starts doing Reelin' and Rockin'. That's his closer. And these college students are kind of standing in front of the stage and they're all jumping up and down dancing. So Chuck, while he's playing, he goes down and he's grabbing them by the hand and he's pulling the girls up on stage so they can dance on stage with him. And I'm kind of standing there, I'm backing up a little bit, it's getting a little crowded on stage. Everybody's having a great time. And Chuck, of course, having a great time with these young college girls around him dancing. But then this young man gets up on stage and he starts dancing, but he's dancing like really frenetic. I mean, arms and legs are kicking out.
Like punk rock.
Beyond. He's working off of something else, this young man, for sure.
Okay.
And people are making a little bit of space around him because he's kind of flailing. So the next thing that happens is security guards start coming out on stage. I'm watching all this, right? I'm standing behind Chuck. The girls are dancing. He's playing. This guy's kind of going, it's a bit out of control. And his security guards come out to try to get him off the stage. He resists. We're still playing Reelin' and Rockin'. He resists and they get him down on the floor of the stage and the billy clubs come out. This is all happening in front of me. And Chuck's still playing. So Chuck looks over and he sees this happening. He sort of does a little shuffle, playing with his left hand. And he reaches down with his right hand and he pulls the security guards off this kid who's about ready to get beat. And he pulls them off, 2, 3 guards. He pulls them off, grabs the kid by the scruff of his neck and throws him off the stage. Takes his bow, hands me his guitar so I can put on a stand. He walks off the stage. We continue playing Reelin' and Rockin'. That's my Chuck Berry story. He never stopped playing.
Yes.
While he was grabbing the guys. It was like, like this. And he's reaching with his right hand, getting the security guards off this kid and getting them off the stage.
I'm surprised he didn't stop.
He didn't, we didn't stop. We just kept vamping.
Yeah.
We kept vamping. And he took his bow,
Yep.
handed me the guitar as he always did.
Mm-hmm.
I put it on my stand.
Mm-hmm.
And we played for like maybe another minute.
Yeah. That's.
But it was something to watch this happen in front of
What
you.
year? What year are we talking about?
87 maybe.
Okay.
87.
Yeah.
I think I played from 86, 86 the first time, and this was just a couple of years later. I must think 87.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was in his 60s.
You got loads of stories. I said to JB, some of the James Brown's musicians.
Right.
Yeah. We will do another one of these.
Yes. Oh yeah. No, that's yes. Oh, that's again, what a thrill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. I'm the only white guy in the joint. It was great playing blues. Everybody else is doing something else because it was a jam night.
Yeah.
Let's see that story.
Yeah.
Good one.
Alrighty. Thank you, Dave. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a great pleasure.
What is the name of the Django book?
Gypsy Jazz Guitar.
Gypsy Jazz Guitar. Alrighty. So we before the year of the end, or the end of the year rather?
Before the end of the year.
Okay. So be on the lookout for that. As I know about it, I will share it with everyone I know. Because that and the Alex Skolnick. So
yes, jazz rock improvisation. Yeah, thanks for everything you do.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you.
Very
As you know, how, yeah, you inspired me. So,
appreciate it. Well,
alrighty.
that's a great compliment. I appreciate it.
But I will see you. I will see you next time. Alrighty.
Yeah, we'll be in touch.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Rod. Thank you.
Bye.